ASAP Finance, back with another episode. How you doing today, Sam?
I'm doing pretty well. What about you, Kyle?
I'm doing wonderful. I loved the episode last week. Turned out pretty good. Excited for the trip tomorrow. So, let's get into it.
I think it's definitely our best episode yet. And want to welcome any new listeners that came from the Instagram post.
Yeah, we appreciate all the support and everything. For dropping likes, comments, let us know what you want to see. We really appreciate all the love and support. I really had fun that video, honestly. It was super fun, like having like two of those people on, like Walker and Joe. They were so insightful. Like that was the first time I ever had like a deep conversation with them, and they just brought a lot of wisdom. So make sure you guys check that out if you haven't seen it.
Definitely took a lot of stuff away from that.
What was your favorite part that they talked about? What was like the favorite?
Honestly, I really liked how they were so open about just how overwhelming it was, you know, and how like it. I mean, I guess I kind of realized like obviously how difficult it is to be a business owner, but when they really said that their social lives were just completely out the window, I was really like, wow, like that's kind of surreal. I don't think many people like. I feel like it's kind of like, especially today, everyone's like, oh, I want to own a business, I want to start a business, and no one really realizes like you don't have any time. It takes up a lot to start a business.
Yeah, and you mentioned like drop shipping and stuff, but like that doing like drop shipping from your house and like managing like a business that way is a lot different than what they explained how they were running a cleaning company. Like they literally like we're using that, like when you're doing something online, it's just like your fingers, okay, you move this here, maybe call some people. But like when you're actually doing like labor, that's physically demanding on your body. And like they were saying, they lost their hairline and stuff. Like that's so crazy that I never would think that causes so much stress on your life. So it's always good like to like make sure you're dealing with stress whether you have a business or not, because it's really detrimental on your health if you're really stressed out, whatever you're doing, whether it be school or a business or work, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And we're gonna do our best to follow that episode. Talking about 3D printing today.
Dude, I'm excited, man. Dude, I think 20 years from now, I think this is gonna be just mainstream. Like the world, we're gonna get into it, but the world, like how it's adapting right now and everything that's just coming together, like so many problems in the manufacturing industry and a lot of industries, supply chains and whatnot. I think 3D printing is just gonna come in and really aid the industry and aid all the supply and the demand for people, that they're just demanding so many products, and 3D printing is gonna come in and take over, you know. So
yeah, and before we get started, just in case a couple of days before this, you guys see this episode, in case the next 3D printing giant thing just happens, we are filming this about like 8 days in advance because we're about to go head out west for 2 weeks. So these next two episodes we planned about 2 weeks ago.
hey,
So
you guys don't have to worry. Episode every Tuesday. We're gonna grind whether we're in Spain, Washington, or at our college. So
this was a grind getting all these ready.
yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it.
Alrighty.
I mentioned this earlier. There's so many issues like with current manufacturing. First off, let's just think like if you're just walking around and seeing businesses, you see all the hiring signs. There's so many people hiring right now. Like every single business out there is trying to hire new workers because there's not enough workers that want to work. Everyone got sent home from not manufacturing. Everyone got sent home from COVID and they got laid off and they don't want to go back to work. Either they found a job online or they got enough money from somewhere else or the government or whatnot, and they don't want to go back to work. So all these companies, they're lacking a lot of workers. So when a factory, if they're on a line and they need like hand labor to assemble products and they don't have enough people, that ruins their production. So that's one of the current issues that I think 3D printing is going to tackle. And then obviously demand and supply, basically really simple. There's so many like people that are demanding products and like microchips for cars and phones and computers, and everything's going digital right now. There's so much demand for that right now, and we just cannot keep up as a society. But first off, because like I said, no one wants to work. We're just at a shortage for all the demand because everything's going digital, and we need something that's going to take that over, right?
Yeah, and it seems like either everywhere you go, there's a shortage of something. Like I went to Chipotle the other day. All I wanted was some guacamole with my burrito because I had a free guac too in my app. There's an avocado shortage, so they didn't even have any guacamole.
Dude, that's the worst.
It ruined my day.
Especially like if you order, dude, I've had times where I've gone to a fast food place and I like order like, oh, I'm craving this chicken or I'm craving this polo asada, and I get there and they're like, sorry sir, we're out of the chicken. I'm like, are you serious? That's all I wanted. But yeah, anyways, and then also like another thing to do with like assembly lines, like robotics and automation. You're familiar with those. You're an aerospace major. Like it takes a lot of like robotic people will try to replace manufacturing with like robotics, and like that stuff is really expensive. Like there's a lot of upfront costs and upkeep for robotics and automation, like AI. Like you have to literally program the robot to do something over and over again, and if there's one flaw, it can mess up the whole system, and they might have to shut down for 10 minutes until they can fix it again. So that this 3D printing makes it so it's more individualized, and it's not like an assembly line of robots. Anything to add on the robots?
I don't think so. But I guess like another issue with current manufacturing is there's so many raw materials that go into it, you know.
True.
And the supply chain shortage right now is just insane. There's so much stuff backed up for months and months, and some people think the supply chain's never coming back, and we're gonna have to move to something more innovative and a new sort of supply chain. And obviously, 3D printing, way fewer materials needed for that sort of manufacturing.
Yeah, and that's a great point right there, because another issue with current manufacturing is that when you like produce something, say lumber, perfect example. Say you're sawing lumber for a house. There's so much sawdust that is just dropped on the ground, and all that sawdust has to be thrown away, and they can't use it. Some companies are trying to figure out ways where they can reuse that. 3D printing is one of the examples, but it's especially just like from a standpoint of like global warming and climate change, like making sure that we try to leave no footprint behind us as humans, and limit like the amount of effect we have on an environment. 3D printing really just maximizes the materials used, and there's nothing goes to waste, which we're going to get into here in a sec, which I think is super important.
Yeah, because I mean, you're literally starting from scratch. It's literally printing the thing you're making. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is amazing.
But obviously, I mean, this is still super early, the whole 3D printing scene. A lot of these companies that are specializing in 3D printing haven't been around very long. And a lot of these machines are still pretty expensive. Obviously, each year that goes on, especially the last few years, they're getting a lot cheaper quickly, but still, if you want to buy one of these things, it's not cheap. Obviously, depending on what hobby you get into, it could pay itself off. There are people that print a lot of stuff off or use 3D printing for those sort of things.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. We really should have brought this up in our side hustle video. But our friend's little brother, he actually bought a 3D printing machine, and it was like, I think it was 3 years ago. This dude was in middle school, which is insane. He's a smart guy. He's really cool. But Lane Barton, if you're watching this, shout out to him. But he actually bought a 3D printer, and he watched YouTube like a normal person, learned how to do it, and he made like fidget spinners. And like it was a crazy fad back then, and it still is. Like I still see a lot of little kids with fidget spinners right now, and he would make them and sell them at school. And literally a perfect example of just buying a 3D printer, making a product, and going out and selling it, which some companies are doing right now to the max.
Yeah, and another thing is they're not really energy efficient yet. I think the average right now for one of the smaller models of 3D printers is like 50 watts an hour, which compared to like a kitchen appliance or like a washing machine, is pretty minimal. But you gotta realize a lot of these things that are being printed, some of them take days just to make. So that really adds up. And obviously that's another thing that these companies are working on getting down, and new companies are working on more efficient models. Another thing, black market. This seems like the issue that's brought up with almost everything. Elizabeth Warren says, crypto is just used for black market deals, whatever. But I mean, if you think about it, sure, there could be some people that are printing black market weapons with 3D printers. And then a lot of manufacturing jobs will be lost because of 3D printers. Just because if you think about some big manufacturing warehouse, how many workers are there, and then you replace it with a bunch of 3D printers, most of them will be gone.
Yeah, you're right. And it's just like something to realize. Like everything has negatives. Mm-hmm. And like 3D printing, obviously it's not perfect. Obviously there's literally crime in every scenario. So it's just like for people to just throw out that like negative aspect about 3D printing or Bitcoin, even like it's used for crime, it's just used for this, like everything has crime in it. So it's like it's not a valid argument for really anything, I don't think, because there's so many criminals out there.
Yeah, and in the same way, everything is going to cause a loss of jobs. In today's age, every innovation that's happening is going to take jobs away because we're just going more and more towards automated things, and jobs are just going to disappear so quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly, a lot of people like think it's a bad thing for society, but if you think about it, if less people are doing manual labor, like manual labor is so demanding, like you tell someone to like do this, and then just do this every day, and you don't really think like outside of the box, like how to improve the situation. You just keep doing labor over and over again. But if there's less people in the workforce, there's going to be even more innovation as time goes on. It's not going to be just everyone being used for their hands. They're actually going to be able to like think, use their brains, and like be able to create things, not just being labor, which I think a lot of people don't understand that when we're saying we're taking away jobs from the labor force. But y'all are probably wondering like, how does 3D printing work, right?
I'm honestly wondering this a little bit myself.
Okay, yeah, I did some research, Sam. No worries. I'll try to explain it the best I can because I'm still learning too. Actually, it was kind of funny because when I was researching it, I didn't realize like how many like methods there are. Like it's insane, like the different amount of like methods you can use to print the same thing over and over again. And I think like I think crypto is going to play out the same way, but right now it's so early in the space, and soon some like the most efficient methods are going to stand out on top. So let's dive into one of the first ones. I'm going to say this word. It's probably going to sound super alien, but just stick with me and I'll try to explain it. It's called vat polymerization. Does that sound like I'm pronouncing it right?
Sounds pretty alien.
Okay, yeah, it does. Okay, basically light is just directed as a specific point of resin, okay? So think about this, like there's a laser and it's shooting into a box. And then there's a glass point that's pointed down, and it's shooting down on a liquid layer. So imagine just like a pool of resin, okay? And you shoot the laser down at the resin, and then it hardens the top layer, okay? So that's the first part. And then the liquid's gonna move down. And then you do the same thing again, and it hardens the area, and then it moves down. And then it hardens the area, and then it moves down. So it's basically just that process over and over again, which is most of these. Is that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And then the next one, powder bed fusion, a little more common words here, not so alien. Basically just kind of similar to a liquid. Imagine that there's just a layer of powder on the ground, and you'll see the trend here. A lot of it is just like a layer of liquid or powder, and you harden the top layer, and then the layer either moves up, like the board moves up, or the board moves down. So in this scenario, powder bed fusion, it just has powder and it hardens the powder, and then they put more powder on top. And then they harden the powder and they put more powder on top. And then soon an item comes out and they just they literally like after all the powder layers are gone, there's a bunch of powder around the item, and they literally just take the item out or slide it from under, which I couldn't find any videos on seeing that. I feel like that would be super satisfying.
Yeah, that does sound pretty
like those little things where you like push your hand on the dude, I don't know. I hope someone right now is listening to that knows what I'm talking about, but like you push your hand and you'll put your face on it, then it pops out. And like you'll see it from the other side.
We're gonna put a picture of that on YouTube for the YouTube listeners.
Okay, yeah, those are super satisfying. And then the last one, obviously there's a bunch more, but just one of the few that I found appealing. The last one is called material jetting. This is honestly one that I think is going to stick around for a while because it just makes so much sense. Imagine you just have like a crane and it's full of material, resin, whatever you want to call it, concrete, and it just drops. It goes around. There's a board and it creates a shape for whatever it's building. It drops whatever material down, and then it lets it harden, and then it drops it again, and it lets it harden. And that's honestly a super simple concept. I think most of the 3D printing use cases are going to be used that way, especially construction, which is going to be super cool. I don't know if you looked at that slides later, dude, but you're going to be amazed at what some people did with a house. It's going to be super cool.
I feel like how it's described as creating layers. I feel like that's an important thing to mention, because I mean, when you hear the term printing, you automatically think a printer. And what does a printer do? It just shoots out a piece of paper real quick. Like these things take days and days to render, because it's not like you're just printing a piece of paper. You're literally building objects that normally would take weeks or months to make.
Right. Yeah, like I remember Lane I'm sure a lot of it has like progressed, but I know Lane, he was talking about how fidget spinner would take like a few hours just for one fidget spinner, and think how small those are, and it takes that much time. Hopefully this field is going to progress and be a lot faster, because that's the whole point of it, to make everything faster and catch up the supply chains and whatnot.
Yeah, and obviously once again, because it's so early, it does have some sort of environmental impact. And obviously, what does have more of an environmental impact is traditional manufacturing. I mean, you picture the whole, like a manufacturing plant, just steam, coal, every greenhouse gas imaginable just flowing out of a big factory pipe straight into the atmosphere. Terrible. But 3D printing is a lot better. For another reason, there's less waste, right? Because 3D printing has fewer raw materials, there's gonna be less waste. Opposed to
there's really no waste at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just reuse the products they don't use. When they put down that powder, if they didn't use it, they put it back in the next powder.
Although, I mean, there's very little waste. It does have like plastic filament because most 3D printing is the base material is plastic filament, and there will be some of that either in like a solid form.
What's plastic filament like? How is it? Is it just regular plastic or?
It's, I mean, you know, like the word filament. It's sort of like I don't even know how to describe it. Like sort of like you picture a plastic water bottle. It'd be more of like a liquidy form, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Filament is kind of, I picture a string.
Okay.
I guess I should have looked more into that. But then more importantly is UFPs and VOCs. Okay, you might remember this from like biology or environmental science.
I don't.
UFPs are ultrafine particles, and VOCs are volatile organic compounds, I think.
Okay.
So 3D printers when they're being used, they do release these toxins into the air, and they are harmful, which is why a lot of times with the bigger 3D printers that are printing more advanced materials, you'll see people wearing gas masks because these things are toxic to breathe in. And then, like I said earlier, the energy demands for these are still pretty high. 50 watts an hour, I think it was. And that's, in the end, that will lead to greenhouse gas emissions, which bad for the environment. But it is important to remember, this is extremely net positive. It is so much more efficient and environmentally friendly than traditional manufacturing. And although it's not yet perfect, it's on the road to becoming perfect, and like it is going that way quickly.
Right. And you can't just like get rid of all the environmental impacts we have now. Like it has to be a slow process. Like obviously there's like oil, like fracking. There's so much of that stuff going on, but it's not just like something that we can stop and the world's just gonna adjust to automatically. It's something that we have to progress towards over time and like make these disruptive innovations towards society that will slowly eliminate the environmental impact, and soon we'll be net zero. 20 years, 50 years, who knows? But as long as we're making progress, you know.
Yeah, and like two specific relevant examples of that is one, like crypto. Obviously,
Thanks.
some types of crypto mining are not environmentally friendly, and although a lot of what you see in the media or politicians will try and say it's horrible and it's like the worst thing for the environment possible, it's not even most cases not even worse than like a washing machine.
Yeah.
But obviously, like that is becoming less so quickly. I mean, you see like obviously this is different type of mining, but I mean, who knows? Maybe in the future we'll have an episode about like helium mining. So maybe stay tuned for that. Possibly next Tuesday. I don't know. But then another relevant example will be like oil. You know, for years and years and years and years and years, like ExxonMobil was the largest stock in the U.S. stock market for countless years, and then electric cars kind of became like, oh, this is gonna happen. Everyone was like, okay, sell all oil, it's gonna be gone. No more oil. It's the worst investment ever. Like it was gonna happen overnight.
Yeah.
And people are realizing it's gonna be a slow process.
Yeah. People think it's just a dream and you can just eliminate everything by changing a law or changing a policy, but it's something that we all have to work towards together. And I think 3D printing is going to change that. Mm-hmm. And some companies that are leading the pathway right here. One of my favorites is Desktop Metal. Super smart CEO. If you ever get a chance, just watch like some interviews of Rick Fulop. He's a super smart guy. He really understands the whole industry. He's been working in this field for like, I think 10 plus years. Just to start off this, speaking of Rick Fulop, he did say in an interview that I was watching actually the other day, he said, this is like investing in semiconductors in the 70s. Okay, imagine 50 years from now, 3D printing has exploded like semiconductors had in the 70s. Sounds like a good investment to me. I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't advice, but it sounds like a pretty good investment to me if he's saying that.
I mean, in that sense, because today, semiconductors, extreme shortage. Like as big of a shortage as it gets because they're in such high demand. I guess 50 years from now, we'll have a shortage of 3D printers.
Dude, that might be true. Because 3D printing is going to create semiconductors, and then what's going to be the next in line to be a shortage of?
It can solve the issue of semiconductors by printing semiconductors.
Oh, true. Okay, well, anyways, Desktop Metal is basically just like a mass manufacturer. They're doing additive 3D printing, just create products, screws, bolts, and then they're moving into healthcare as well. Do your own research in that company if you want to dive deeper.
Yeah, and they also have a few 3D printing models that they sell.
Yeah, yeah. And then also, Cellink is, dude, this bioprinting industry is going to be absolutely insane in 50 years. What it's like, they're actually creating 3D printers. I think that's their main product. That's what they started with, and that's still most of their revenue right now. But they supply bioprinters, and they're a super interesting company. When 50 years from now, if our heart fails and we need a new one, they might be printing them in that machine, which is going to be crazy.
It's crazy to think, like, decades from now, you'll be on a surgery table and a robot's gonna be placing a 3D printed heart inside of you.
I would not be surprised if that happened.
Wild.
And then obviously you don't want to put all your money in one company. There's some safer routes. ETFs, like we've talked about in like our first episode. We love ETFs. 3D printing ETF. It's PRNT. I forgot to mention actually desktop metals ticker is DM if y'all want to look that up. And then 3D printing is PRNT. They're managed by ARC.
And like those ETFs, you want to get into 3D printing, you buy that ETF, you can just turn on those automatic buys to get that compound interest.
Facts. Compound interest is a magical thing. And then obviously if you just want a safer route, I mean there's companies like Microsoft right now, they're investing in 3D printing right now. If you invest in just the Vanguard VGT, the safest technology investment you could probably make, they're obviously going to adjust as 3D printing gets more and more disruptive and it gets more and more mainstream. So even if you own an ETF, you're still owning the underlying stocks in the ETF. So just know that you're still getting that exposure if you do own something like Vanguard.
Yeah, so just like wrap this up with, I guess, future use cases for 3D printing. Because literally anything you think of, probably 3D printing is going to just absolutely demolish that industry.
For sure. Okay, well, we already mentioned medical implants. Those are amazing. New hearts, new lungs. There's also, okay, never mind. I don't want to go out on a limb here. Okay, let's stay focused. Visual artists. Think about that. Like, you can make the most abstract things possible with a 3D printer. Like, obviously, when you're constructing something, you have to think about like architect and like how everything stands. But with a 3D printer, you can literally make any shape possible. Like, you don't have to worry about what material you're using. It's literally the most abstract thing you can imagine. Same goes similar jewelry. Imagine having a diamond ring like with the super like it's cut out like with your name or like the initials of your wife or something or your husband. That would be super cool. Maybe I might be buying a 3D printing ring in a bit. And then another true. And then another one I was thinking about that I learned actually, I did not even think about this, is filmmaking. So actually Stranger Things, anyone who's a fan of Stranger Things, great show. I've only watched the first season. I don't know about the next few, but it's really popular. The Demogorgon, they collabed with I think it was Formlabs, and they actually 3D printed the model of the Demogorgon to get like the real features. And then after they 3D printed the model and they got everything right, then they transmitted it into CGI, which I think is just super cool that you can see like the real life form. And then this is super cool to me, okay? This is the coolest thing I came across here, okay? 3D printing an entire home, Sam.
That's wild. That is crazy.
Okay. You think this has happened yet or no?
I mean, if I had to guess, I'd say like probably happened February 2021.
How'd you know that, man? You must.
I mean, I cheated.
You did. Okay.
I would never have guessed that.
So SQ4D, they literally printed. It was the first 3D printed home ever. It was 900 square feet, which is insane. Like that's a big house. Like it's a solid house.
That's not a small house.
And guess, okay, well you cheated, but how many days would you think it would take if you didn't cheat? Like,
if I didn't cheat, I would say like a month.
Okay, 2 days.
If I did cheat, I'd have to say 2 days for sure.
Okay, it was 2 days, and I think I read an article, and I think they said they had like 5 employees. I think it was lower than that, but that's just insane that they built a house in 2 days, and then they were on the news and everything, and everyone was trying to buy it because it was so famous. And then obviously, there's another thing that I found as far as printing homes. Icon and Lenar, they're doing like a collab, and in Texas, they're building a fully 3D printed neighborhood. They signed this contract. They committed to it in like 2019, and now they're making it a whole 3D printed neighborhood. So there's a lot of process to it. But they're starting to do construction in Texas. So that's a cool thing to follow in the future. Maybe I might own a 3D printing real estate.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, all I'm taking away from this is 3D printing, future, obvious.
Definitely. It is insane. Like, I'm so excited to see. I'm so glad we're living in this industry and like this time where everything is just catapulting forward so fast.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like every day there's just some new thing that comes out, something published, something that happens that's just like what? How is that even possible?
Yeah, it is insane. Well, yeah, that was a great episode. I really enjoyed talking about 3D printing. It's something I'm personally invested in, and I really hope that it takes over because I think it'll do a lot of good for the world.
Yeah, I know we definitely mentioned some companies in here, but it's important to remember that we might hold positions in these securities we discussed, and none of this was financial advice. You should seek the help of a financial advisor, and we appreciate the listens.
Yeah, leave a review on Spotify for us, please, if you enjoyed the episode. We really appreciate it to grow it. And
feedback, requests, anything in the comments.
Yeah, thank you for watching, everyone.
Yep, see you in the next one.